It now gives me great pleasure to introduce my good friend Lance LaRusso. Lance LaRusso is a litigator with a health care and law enforcement background. He focuses his practice on administrative law, liability defense, critical incident response for medical and public safety professionals, and personal injury and wrongful death cases on behalf of injured parties. Lance holds an undergraduate degree from Emory University and a master's degree from Kennesaw State University. He graduated cum laude from Georgia State University College of Law. Lance is honored to serve as General Counsel for the Georgia Fraternal Order of Police. Lance was an officer with the Cobb County Police Department for 12 years, including his tenure in law school. As a Cobb officer, Lance worked in the training division and as an investigator with the Cobb County Solicitor's Office. Lance is a Georgia Peace Officer Standard training instructor in multiple areas, including legal issues, firearms, and emergency vehicle operation. He holds certifications as a hostage negotiator, intermediate and advanced officer, and is an instructor in taser and active shooter. Lance's blog, BlueLineLawyer.com, is a legal resource for cops. He recently released a book called When Cops Kill to raise money for law enforcement charities and educate law enforcement about officer-involved shootings. Please help me give Lance LaRusso a warm Kiwanis welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that welcome. You know, Ricky and I have known each other a long time. You know, we actually worked together with different departments, but we used to share coffee and stuff, and we had our horses pulled up next to each other, but it was a long time ago. I want to thank you for having me here today. It's truly an honor to stand before a group of citizens devoted to public service. The last time I spoke to the Kiwanis was probably in the early 90s when I was working with the police department. Perhaps there is no civic organization better suited to recognize distinguished law enforcement officers who are honored today. Kiwanians and law enforcement officers alike are committed daily to serving the children of the world. I want to speak with you for a few minutes during my time here about heroes. We love heroes, not just in this community, not just in this country, and not just in recent history. Throughout the history of man, we've sought out and worshiped heroes. The ancient Greeks worshipped immortal gods, as well as half-god, half-human humans like Hercules, who possessed tremendous strength and courage. The Bible is filled with heroic stories and acts from Moses crossing the Red Sea to the extraordinary warrior strength of Samson, who wrestled a lion and killed an entire army with the jawbone of an axe. I note for historical purposes today how prevalent that latter weapon is today, although it usually only kills careers and not entire armies of people. As we move through history, we see no decrease in the number of heroes in our books, our monuments, or our personal stories. Our heroes of the past half century have names that sound more like our own. Major Audie Murphy, Medal of Honor winner at 19 years old, and one of the most decorated soldiers of World War II. Martin Luther King, Marine Sergeant Dakota Meyer, awarded the Medal of Honor in 2011. When we run out of heroes in our society, we manufacture them. We have Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. These are all efforts on our part to keep the search for heroes going strong. Now, why do we as humans feel the need to memorialize heroes in our culture? Well, whether they're feature strength, exceptional wisdom, or legendary courage, as a people, we find and revere our heroes. We seek them out and hold their memories dear and ever present because they represent what is good in all of us, the ideals to which we aspire and promise, letting us know that good will triumph over evil. So what makes a hero? What makes somebody make the grade of a hero? How does one pass the test? I sincerely hope the tests are not as stringent as they are in Greek mythology or in the Bible. Let's face it, finding Atlas and holding the sky up even for a few minutes would be pretty tiring. And building an ark 300 cubits long in the hot sun in Georgia would probably not be a whole lot of fun. But today we don't need to look to Mount Olympus or the battlefields of Afghanistan to find examples of exceptional strength and courage. We need only look to our nation's law enforcement officers. During Police Week, we honor those law enforcement officers who gave their lives in service to their communities. I'd like to make the case, though, that our law enforcement officers demonstrate their hero status daily, even in the absence of a crisis that requires a look behind the badge to understand this, into the life of a law enforcement officer that's more than a pressed uniform and polished collar brass. Some of these accounts, I can assure you, would not make the headlines and will never make the New York Times bestseller list, but if you don't believe me, let's try a few. Let's talk about a new novel coming out. Read the exciting new novel about a patrol officer who runs radar on morning watch and coaches Little League on weekends. Probably not going to be on the New York Times bestseller list anytime soon. Let's try another one. He was a crime prevention officer during the day, but in the evenings he was known as Scoutmaster. Yeah, probably not another New York bestseller list. Well, let's try one more. She was the newest detective lieutenant assigned to the property crimes division, but her true superhero powers were demonstrated every night when she became the mom with 2 boys in middle school. I can guarantee you that last is probably more challenging than the first part. I have to agree with you, the books will never sell well, but the public servants described in these teasers are the heroes of modern culture. Like the heroes of our past, they are just as much a part of the fabric of our community, our society, and our culture. They are the leaders to whom we look for guidance and protection when our comfortable worlds fall apart. We look with hope and humility at their daily sacrifices. In times of tight budgets, I've heard people comment how the police and fire departments seem to fare well during the furloughs. That's because these people are committed to public service and getting the job done no matter what obstacles arise. But unfortunately, and I'm preaching to the choir to some of the folks in uniform here, the risks are growing for law enforcement officers daily. Budget cuts lead to shorter shifts, aging vehicle fleets, and reduced training. The misdirection of political and government efforts towards gun control saps resources and creates a false sense of security for the public. 15,000 law enforcement officers surveyed overwhelmingly stated that the majority of gun control measures currently being considered would not have any effect on criminal activity whatsoever. We all know what the threat to law enforcement is. The threat to law enforcement is and always has been violent criminals who are being released from prison. Consider this, the standards in our pretrial detention right now. If you build a pretrial detention facility, you have to have a certain number of cells designated as supermax cells. That's a testament to the violent nature of the criminals and that law enforcement officers are contacting on a daily basis. These are the people they're stopping on traffic stops. These are the people they're finding in woods on searches. And I remember all too well, Trooper Chad LaCroix was shot and killed on December 27, 2010 by a convicted felon with multiple arrests who repeatedly was given probation. But despite these difficulties, they keep moving on. Law enforcement officers remain committed because law enforcement is a profession, not a job. If you want proof of that, time and time again, in disasters like hurricanes like Andrew and Sandy, as well as terrorist attacks like 9/11 in Boston, law enforcement officers prove they are dedicated professionals. We are truly blessed in our country to have highly trained professionals wearing the uniform of our local and state governments. Your effort to honor those assembled today is truly inspiring. And I can tell you from personal experience that the awards that you give out today touch the very soul of these law enforcement officers, and they are grateful. This week is National Police Week. We honor 120 law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice for their communities in 2012. 120. I humbly ask that you also remember the law enforcement officers who survived these horrific events only to emerge permanently disabled. I'm proud to serve on the board of Hunting for Heroes. We serve disabled law enforcement officers and their families throughout the United States with peer counseling, therapeutic goals, and hunting trips. For them, most of them, there is no lifetime health coverage, and for most, there is no disability pay. They are simply discharged from their departments when they can no longer meet the physical requirements of the job. Some are discharged honorably with a ceremony, but sadly, most are unceremoniously terminated with a letter, or worse, a phone call. We need to do a better job of taking care of those law enforcement officers who survive their injuries only to learn that their recovery and continuing in their lives is the toughest fight they will ever know. I saw some of you reading these brochures, but you'll see these Hunting for Heroes brochures on your desk, and I hope you'll take a moment to read them and go to the website. Last September, Hunting for Heroes brought a group of 5 disabled law enforcement officers to a dove hunt in Missouri. One of the officers had a 12-year-old son. Now, if you ever try to get information out of a 12-year-old son, you get 3 words with a pair of pliers. That's about all you're going to get. The officer had suffered a traumatic brain injury from an assault. That's a nice way of saying he was beaten up by a suspect and his life will never be the same. Now, I need to put this into context. For that weekend, this young man spent the weekend fishing, hunting, shooting, doing everything a 12-year-old would love to do running around the woods. We asked him to tell the best part about the weekend. He didn't hesitate. He said, "No one's asking me what's wrong with my dad." A disabling injury during the line of duty has a profound and lasting effect on the entire family. For the law enforcement officers, being medically retired strips some of their identity and their support group. You see, being a law enforcement officer is not an 8-hour commitment. It's a 24-hour, non-stop dedication to be the protector of strangers, to run toward the danger that the citizenry flees from, and to think of the well-being of others first. The most common statement from the law enforcement officers we serve with Hunting for Heroes: "You made me feel like a cop again." So put down your crime thrillers, close the books on Roman or Greek mythology, and you don't need to look to Iron Man 3. You have your heroes right here all around you. The law enforcement officer who goes to work without body armor because his department can't afford it. The law enforcement officer who works overtime missing a child's birthday to look for a senior citizen with dementia. And the law enforcement officer who stops a car at 3 a.m. to pull a DUI driver off the street. Those are the heroes. DUI drivers have killed my friends before, and I am grateful when DUI laws are enforced. But these people hug their families and say goodbye before the start of every shift, and they do everything they can to return home safely when that shift is ended. Courage, ladies and gentlemen, is a marathon of commitment to the principles of a moral code. Our nation's law enforcement officers run that marathon every day, and for that we are truly grateful. For the department that can't afford body armor and the disabled law enforcement officers we serve through Hunting for Heroes, I wrote a book about officer-involved shootings entitled "When Cops Kill: The Aftermath of a Critical Incident." It's based on my work with law enforcement officers, including responding to the scene of officer-involved shootings. It contains interviews with law enforcement officers who have shot suspects, officers who have been shot and stabbed, many of whom lost their friends in an instant. Not all law enforcement officers come home at the end of their shifts. This book is about those law enforcement officers and their families. All of the profits from my book will support law enforcement charities like Fraternal Order of Police Vest Fund and Hunting for Heroes. If you want a copy of the book, you can go to whencopskill.com, www.whencopskill.com, for more information on how to obtain a book. We've been graciously allowed to sell some of the books here after the program. I'm happy to reduce the value of the book if you'd like to sign it for you. If you like the book, we ask that you write a review on Amazon.com or send us a little email so we can post a blurb and tell us your thoughts. And share your thoughts with family members if you like the book. The book is intended for law enforcement officers, their families, and anyone who supports law enforcement officers. And I would submit to you today, you have exemplified the meaning of supporting law enforcement. Of course, if you don't like the book, just keep that to yourself. I'm proud to have served as a law enforcement officer and still serve as a law enforcement officer. I can tell you that Al-Qaeda would have to take over the Marietta Square for the sheriff to call me, but I do still serve. But I am most proud to serve as an attorney representing law enforcement officers, especially after an officer-involved shooting, when they need to make a choice between returning home safely or taking a human life. What an honor it is to be bestowed upon me to watch out for and protect the bravest among us when they need protection. I extend my congratulations to the award recipients and my heartfelt thanks to the Gainesville Kiwanis for honoring me and honoring these officers today and giving me the opportunity to speak. Thanks for all you do for your continued service to this community. May God continue to watch over all of our men and women in any type of uniform. Thank you.